All right, y'all, the high holy day of the season is almost upon us. It is almost Halloween, and I knew I needed to do something special, so I must admit I have been inspired. Scream is the top of them for me. It is my favorite full franchise within horror, and my ranking has changed a lot over the years. Well, I watched a video from Jeremy Johns where for Halloween this year, he ranked the Scream franchise, and it dawned on me, it hit me like a sack of bricks. It is finally time to put pen to paper, and we're going to rank them all 6 movies, where we place them as a whole. Let's start off our countdown with the newest addition to the Scream franchise in Scream 6. Now, this movie I have a lot of complicated feelings about because there's a lot of cool stuff in this movie. And I think there are aspects of this movie that are very well done and they add a lot of cool continuation lore into the world, reaffirming the whereabouts of specific characters and expanding out the Scream universe, even if there were definitely highs and lows to the change of scenery. There are scenes that make a lot of sense, just like there are scenes that really don't. There's a scene it's either in 5 or 6 where she says, "So you're telling me that I'm in the middle of fan fiction?" And that's exactly how it feels. It feels like a production house got the rights to Scream and made fan fiction around it. And it shows. And the issue with number 6 is while it's cool and it is engaging at times and it presents some cool hooks, too often it doesn't respond to them or pay them off. Likewise, this is the only Scream movie that is actually hampered by its villain reveal. For the rest of the movies, they present something that leaves the door open for reappraisal or an alternative point of view or a rewatch. This is one that every single angle that I have looked at has been in some way, shape, or form diminished by knowing who they are and knowing how it all goes down. And that's unfortunate to say about a Scream movie. And I fully admit that because of all of the things and all of the such, they will not be able to finish their full and complete vision. But I think very core things were done in this section of Scream's history that you can't unring the bell on. And because you did it, you now need to live in the world where it happened. And I think the biggest thing that qualifies for that is Dewey's death. I 1000% am of the camp that the wrong one died. I think Gale should have gotten it. I think you could have still touched a note with longtime fans and all of that, but especially returning her almost to her root, like all the way back to 1. It's such a slap in the face of the character of Dewey, not to mention Dewey as a character overall is done dirty, especially because they don't really unpack any of it enough to give him any kind of arc. The choice to go back, the choice to shoot, it's not artistic when you have to make a lot of allowances that the character that you're watching isn't doing the thing that the series has already established he's going to do. That's where these 2 movies, kind of fall apart. With Gale, I guess there's an outside chance that in the next one we'll have some kind of emotional payoff. I realized I was trauma responding and so on and so forth, and we kind of get a closure since, again, you've created this world. Now you have to live within this world, unless we pull a Halloween and turn this thing into a choose your own adventure series. I really hope that's not what we do, especially because there are ways that you can kind of capstone this and just be like, okay, it got wild and crazy kids in the middle, but let's go ahead and put a nice little definitive statement here at the end, and then walk away. Understand what you got out of this franchise, and let the thing be a very, very important note in the history of horror. Don't do what they did with Halloween. Don't do what they did with Aliens. Don't do what they probably did with Friday the 13th. I haven't seen the whole thing. I'm not the biggest Friday the 13th fan. Anyway, I really think they have the opportunity to end it with something special, but they are at the end of the story for sure. So all of that being said, number 5 is Scream 5. I like some of what they did. I think it's more rewatchable than 6. I don't think it's ruined by its villain reveal. I think it at some levels makes sense that it's the first one without Wes, and so they bring it back to the beginning and they just do a faithful Scream adaptation. Did every single scene in this movie work for me? No. Do I think that there are highs and lows of this movie? Absolutely. There are for most of these, but I don't think it's necessarily surprising to any long-term Scream fans that a long-term Scream fan would put 5 and 6 as 5 and 6. I think where a lot of the dispute comes is what happens next. The first four, the Wes Craven era of Scream. And so for our next entry, we have Scream 3. We have the most divisive movie in the franchise. Even still, I do not understand how that has not been taken by Scream 6. But Scream 3 is a product of its time. It is the first one that I saw in theaters, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I also understand that it is far from a perfect movie. So I'm not going to be out here being like, this is why it's an an art form. That's happening over on the Halloween side with the conversation about 5 and 6 and all of that sort of stuff. Cool. That's not what we're getting at here. This is a product of its time and an interesting concept, just a little underbaked. You know what I mean? I think honestly, this is the movie that suffered the most from Randy not being there. Just having his sister run into them, meh. I think it added a little bit of the cartoony nature to it. But all in all, I think if you're not judging it on what it could have been, Scream 3 has more hits than misses. I'll at least say that. But there are certainly 3 movies that I put in ahead of it. Now, I think this is going to be the most controversial statement that I'm going to have in this entire ranking. Next up, we've got Scream 2. I can appreciate everybody who has revisited that intro scene and pulled every ounce of artistic expression out of it that they possibly could. And for some people, it really freaks them out. Cool. Awesome. Ghostface needed to know that Omar Epps, I think his name is, it was going to be perfect, or was going to be enticed by all of this, and that is the world's sharpest knife to get through the stall of a bathroom. Are you serious? Like, I'm just saying, a lot of confluence of events needed to take place. If you're not looking at it from that point of view, and you're only looking at it from a symbolistic point of view, a symbolism point of view, a metaphorical point of view, a symbolic point of view, whatever the case may be, you could certainly go other directions with it. It's definitely one of the no, I would say probably the least effective intro for me as a whole. All of that being said, I think Mickey is an unsung hero among Ghostfaces. I think he was phenomenal. I think Timothy Oliphant did an amazing job. I think you either are going to look at that movie, say, "Oh, look at the famous person," and say, "Oh, that's Ghostface." Watching this now, like if you were just watching it now, I could see people doing that. But that being said, I don't know as though the movie really specifically telegraphed it for that audience. So kind of sitting there in the background, it could just as easily be a cameo as it could be an actual plot point, a significant appearance. I think Mickey was playing the role of Billy the entire time, where Mickey is the one that the film is basically telling you is the killer while subverting that it's not the killer. And the whole time you're like, yeah, it makes sense that Mickey is the killer. I think the power for him lies in his motivation. All in all, again, post 6, these are all movies that I love, and I love number 2. I got a chance to see it in theaters after the fact, and it's an absolute treat in a lot of respects. But for me, I think number 4 is better. I think Jill Roberts is a sick and sadistic Ghostface. I think it's ahead of its time. I think it did so much well, and I think it is the first one that really tried to capitalize on now Dewey and Gale are together. Now these two are a thing. I understand that real life situations are real life situations. I'm just saying that when you go from that high in 4 to dropping off so severely in 5, it's a shock to the system, and I think you've just jumped the shark in that kind of descent for his character. But I digress. In number 4, you have Gale trying to adjust to domestic life, and I really think that it's some of the strongest character work from Gale, even though I am not a Gale fan in particular. I love the way that they expand out the cast. I think Charlie was a really interesting play on Stu and that whole character model where it's like Randy but gone bad and is really like kind of like Stu, almost like an amalgamation of those two characters. I do think that's interesting. I think that the whole social media influencer live streaming thing was like seriously only like 10 years too early, but Wes saw that coming and made a whole movie about it. Is the movie obnoxiously bright? Yes, it is obnoxiously bright, but I think the overall story, the acting, where Sidney is, where Dewey is, where Gale is, I think this one is the best one outside of the first. Now, was it ever any dispute about which one was going to be at the top of the pile? No, just like there was probably never any dispute about which one was going to be on the bottom, though I do see people still putting 3 at the bottom. I think you're outside your mind, but teach their own. All of that being said, there they are. I have actually said it and I put it out into the YouTube verse. So do me a favor. Let me know below. What is your ranking? Which ones are your favorite and what you're watching this spooky season? Hey, if you like this video, there's probably a card in the corner that says that you'll like the next one. Check it out.